Hello, my name is Taylor Slaney. The date is December 18th, 2022, and this is my fourth and final case connection video for biochemistry. So in this case connection video, we will be diving into cases 1 and cases 3. In case 1, we have a newborn infant patient who comes in with increased lethargy and elevated ammonia levels. And in case study 3, our patient is a 47-year-old man who comes in with a painful right toe and increased plasma urate with low urinary uric acid. In case study 1, our patient is a newborn girl who was born a normal birth weight, but just 24 hours after her birth, she is lethargic, hypothermic, and apneic. Labs are drawn and initial blood work shows elevated ammonia levels indicating a metabolic disorder. In this first case study, we will explore the urea cycle and what biochemical processes are at work. Our second case study, in case study 3, where we encounter a 47-year-old male patient who comes into the clinic complaining of pain in his right toe. Based off of labs that are collected and his clinical presentation, a diagnosis of gout is made. So in case study 1, as I stated earlier, we have that newborn female patient who has lethargy. She's hypothermic and apneic 24 hours after her birth. The attending physician suspects a metabolic disorder, and labs are drawn. The results show an elevated ammonia levels that are rapidly rising. Ammonia is produced by the catabolism of a variety of amino acids. Most blood ammonia originates from the catabolism of dietary proteins in the gut through the process of glutamate dehydrogenase, which catalyzes glutamate to its transamination product, alpha-ketoglutarate, and ammonia. Alpha-ketoglutarate removes the amino group from the amino acid, further breaking down the protein. Ammonia then enters the circulatory system via the portal vein, where it travels to the liver to be packaged into urea and excreted through the kidneys in urine. Most of the waste nitrogen produced in the body is packaged into glutamine. Glutamine synthase catalyzes the conversion of ammonia and glutamate to glutamine. Glutamine that then acts as a carrier of waste nitrogen until it enters the cells of the intestines or kidneys to be deaminated, releasing the ammonia ion through the process of glutamase catalysis. Ammonia is 1 part nitrogen and 3 parts hydrogen. The majority of ammonia is broken down into urea in the liver and then excreted by the kidneys. What remains of the ammonia, which again is the 1 part nitrogen and 3 parts hydrogen, is oxidized and utilized in anabolic pathways such as gluconeogenesis, which occurs in the liver. Further lab analysis of this newborn female shows urine orotic levels that are significantly elevated, and a plasma citrulline level slightly low. Orotic acid is a sensitivity marker of the liver's capacity to convert toxic ammonia to non-toxic urea that can be excreted by the kidneys. High orotic acid levels indicate ammonia toxicity and can result from inborn errors of ammonia metabolism. Elevated orotic levels are typically synonymous with decrease in citrulline levels due to the decrease in the enzyme ornithine transcarbamylase, which is an enzyme that participates in the urea cycle. We call it the urea cycle as a cycle of biochemical reactions that produce urea from ammonia, utilizing several different enzymes in this process. The urea cycle processes excess nitrogen that is generated when a protein is broken down by the body into a compound called urea that is excreted in the kidneys. It is important for excess nitrogen to be excreted because accumulating nitrogen will form ammonia, which is toxic, especially to the nervous system, hence why our young patient is presenting with the symptoms such as lethargy and other neurological distress signs. Ornithine transcarbamylase, one of the enzymes involved in the urea cycle, is an enzyme that catalyzes the reaction between carbamyl phosphate and ornithine to form citrulline and phosphate. A deficiency in ornithine transcarbamylase will lead to an increase in carbamylene phosphate, which is eventually converted into orotic acid, therefore increasing levels. Decreased ornithine transcarbamylase will also cause a decrease in citrulline, as observed by the patient as well. A decrease in citrulline occurs because of a disruption in the urea cycle caused by a deficiency in ornithine transcarbamylase enzyme. Ornithine transcarbamylase role is to control the reaction in which two compounds, carbamylene phosphate and ornithine, form the new compound citrulline. When there is a deficiency in ornithine transcarbamylase, this process is unable to occur and therefore will result in lower levels of citrulline. So we talked a lot about the different cycles, especially though the urea cycle. So in this slide, I've got a picture of the urea cycle, and it does have some of the enzymes and processes that we talked about with this specific patient. So more lab tests would need to be drawn to determine what exact urea cycle disorder she has. For now, our goal will be to manage symptoms and decrease ammonia levels by stopping protein intake, starting this patient on IV fluids, and initiating first-line medications. Once the patient is stabilized, long-term management of this disorder can be discussed with the parents. It is essential to minimize nitrogen load on the urea cycle by decreasing protein intake. The patient will also need to take essential amino acid supplementation for the rest of her life to achieve normal growth and metabolic stability. So our next case will be case study 3. So in case study 3, we meet the 47-year-old man who presents to the clinic with severe pain in his right great toe. He states that the pain started yesterday and that it continues to increase in severity. He does not report any recent or apparent trauma to the foot, and because of this, labs are collected, including a urinalysis. Serum blood levels show elevated plasma urate, while the urine samples show decreased levels of urinary uric acid. Based on the symptoms and labs, a diagnosis of gout is made. So on this slide, I just have pictures of gout and some of what causes it, which we will discuss further. The labs collected by this patient indicate that his plasma urate is elevated because of a decrease in urinary excretion of uric acid. Patients that do not metabolize purine, the compound that forms uric acid appropriately, will present with labs that show low hypouricemia and hypouricemia urea, but excrete excessive amounts of purine in the urine, which is not aligned with the labs from our 47-year-old patient in this study. To create uric acid, both hypoxanthine and guanine are needed to make xanthine, which converts into uric acid. Purine salvage is a process that changes hypoxanthine back to IMP and guanine back to GMP to be used for RNA or DNA synthase. This is possible with the enzyme HGPRT. The lack of this enzyme will prevent effective purine salvage and will therefore cause an increase in serum levels of uric acid. Laboratory tests need to be done to determine if HGPRT is active and functioning appropriately for this to be considered as a possible explanation for this patient's increase in serum plasma urate. So after further discussion with this patient, he mentions that he recently switched from diet soda to regular soda because he read that the fake sugar in diet soda was bad for him. He also informs us that he drinks between 4 to 5 liters of soda a day. Diet sodas are sweetened with sugar substitutes such as aspartame or stevia, whereas regular sugars are sweetened with fructose or high fructose corn syrup. Fructose can trigger a gout attack because the body will break down fructose into glucose 6-phosphate, which will enter the pentose phosphate pathway to create ribosome 5-phosphate. This will increase synthesis of PRPP and therefore more purine due to the increase in pentose sugar. Purines produce uric acid, which is a substance that forms painful needle-like crystals in the soft tissues and joints that cause gout. Gout is a common form of inflammatory arthritis that can cause intensely painful flare-ups in individual joints throughout the body. The most common joint, though, is the big toe. An estimated 8 million Americans suffer from gout attacks, which can last for a few days. If not managed, the condition can become chronic and lead to destruction of joints over time. Purines occur naturally in the body, but can also be found in certain foods and beverages. So in this next slide, I just have a few pictures of what can cause or trigger gout, such as drinking a lot of soda, excessive amounts of soda, and weight gain or obesity. and then just some things that can help reduce attacks or help when attacks do occur. So diet, exercise, and then medication called allopurinol. So the most likely culprit to this patient's gout attack is his excessive consumption of soda. To not only prevent future gout attacks, but to also help with his overall health, education on decreasing all soda consumption, diet, and regular needs to be done. We can talk with him like it is okay to every once in a while indulge on a soda, but 4 to 5 liters is just far too much. Other long-term treatment plans include increasing physical exercise and losing weight. When a flare-up does occur, self-care treatment includes icing the affected joint and resting the area to decrease pain while taking analgesics and NSAIDs, such as acetaminophen or ibuprofen. If high levels of uric acid continue and frequent gout attacks occur, the patient may be prescribed a uric acid reducer such as allopurinol. So these were the references I used to create this paper and this video. And that concludes my 4th and final case connections video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.